All right, GM, everyone. Thanks for showing up. I'm recovering from a cold, so you might hear me coughing a bunch. Sorry about that. Yeah, speak of the devil. um, yeah, so let's see. I guess I'll just get right into the questions. Let's see. All right, D wants to know about Project S, and so does White Turtle Bill. Um, yeah, so still nothing additional that we can reveal relative to what we've revealed in the past. Um, we continue to work on it. It's making progress, um, reworking some algorithms, uh, doing a bunch of testing and writing, all that kind of stuff. Um, so, yeah, uh, we are making progress. That's about as much as I can say right now. All right, so Otto asks, starting to see more statements from Pith leadership about potential changes to their feeds. Any thoughts you can share about governance, feed pricing, and modifications to the push-pull model on Solana? I never heard Pith mention changing to the pull model, but I recall that you, Durden, did a while ago. By the way, I love the Pith staking. All right, so yeah, just to bring everyone up to speed on what Otto is referring to with the push and pull model. So on Solana, Pith uses a push model, and this means that they every block or every slot on Solana, they push the price onto the chain. And so it's updated every 400 milliseconds approximately. And this is why Pith is so useful to us because these price updates are the fastest of any Oracle that we know of. Um, yeah. And so Pith doesn't work like that on other chains, though. Solana is the only chain where it utilizes this push model. I think that's partially because it's most useful here, given that Solana itself is the fastest chain, and also that Solana is the place where they started off, and also they forked Solana to create their own PithNet, um, which is where they first published their prices. Anyways, so on other chains, what they use is the pull model, and in this model, um, any user can request a price update, and it'll send that request to, I believe, PithNet, and then uh, I'm not like privy to the exact details, but some party will then publish the data onto the chain that you're on, that the requester is on, and then they can use the price. So the problem with this model for us is that it introduces additional latency. In other words, the price updates become slower because right now, we just look on chain and there's already a price update. But in this other model, we would have to every time someone tries to trade with us, we'd have to ask Pith to bring the price on chain and then see if like the trade they requested with the parameters such as the slippage they selected is still viable for the trade to go through. And this will make um, it a lot more difficult for arbitrage trades to take place because it takes more time. It'll also mean traders' trades will fail more frequently because um, yeah, the price update is slow, uh, and there's a higher chance of greater slippage. It also means that we're at a greater risk of being front run just because there's this longer interval. So this model, while not impossible for Lifinity to use, is suboptimal. So ideally, um, Pith just keeps using the push model on Solana, that would be best for us. But I have heard of Pyth talking about moving to the pool model on Solana before. So yeah, I'm not sure where they are with regards to that right now. Like, I'm not sure what the team is thinking about that. Um, it's not fully up to the team, I guess, now that Pyth has governance. But yeah, but it is a possibility. Uh, some people are probably wondering, so I'll just mention that in the case that Pyth does switch to the pool model on Solana, what we would probably do is start to use our own oracles for most assets. um, we already use some of our own oracles for some assets, but yeah. So if we used our own oracle, we'd basically be as fast as Pyth, and that would probably just end up being better than having to rely or having to rely on this new Oracle model that introduces additional latency. Because of the additional latency, it would mean that we would have to widen our spreads, which means we're less competitive in the markets and we would have less volume. So instead of accept that, we'd probably rather just use our own oracles. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't come to that. We'll see. I I guess I've heard some other people talk about how they haven't heard Pyth talk about that lately. So maybe it was a thing that they thought about at one time but are no longer thinking about. I'm not sure. But yeah. And follow up from Otto related thoughts on the relative weight of Lifinity's governance, stake, and influence over Pyth. Also, welcome. Should we buy more? How much would make a difference? I haven't looked into what the total amount of staked Pyth is. Like right now, the proposals are mainly about accepting certain governance delegates, or maybe that wasn't the term. That might have been a Jito governance term. Yeah, I forgot the term, but you're looking for like notable leaders in Pyth governance essentially. So it's just like voting on those people. So yeah, I haven't thought too much about Pyth governance yet because there hasn't really been any proposals that would affect us significantly. So yeah, kind of waiting to see. I doubt we would buy more for the purpose of governance. Like for us to gain an amount that would make a difference in our governance power, I think that would be tons of money. So it would be a huge investment. So seems unlikely. Yeah. Hope that satisfactorily answers that. We have another question from Otto. It says, I don't really understand the changes being promoted for Flare DAO. Actually, give me a second. Oh, looks like people cannot hear me on Discord. This is depressing. This happens sometimes. And the cause is totally unknown. Let's see. Um, yeah. I don't know what the issue is, but probably not going to be able to fix it right now. So if you want to listen, I would suggest going to Twitter. We're also doing the AMA. Sorry about that, everyone. Let me just tag people, let them know. All right, back to the questions. Thanks for waiting. So I'm just going to read from the start again. So Otto says, I don't really understand the changes being promoted for Flare DAO. Can you please summarize your current understanding and what key points of debate are unsettled? Yeah, so the big picture is that um, the Flare DAO wants to do things with its funds. Uh, its funds are mainly composed of the VE Lifinity that it purchased like a year ago or something, and the USDC that's generated from that VE Lifinity. In addition to that, there's some Sol, some meme coins, some NFTs. So it has these assets, and we've occasionally done proposals to like deploy them to lending protocols or to buy something or to sell something. And um, it's really better if this was organized and governed in a way where it's easier to move faster. And until now, we've done flare holder votes for each individual action. And I really think this is suboptimal, partially because most people just don't care. um, and then on the other hand, there are some people who care a lot. And I think it makes a lot of sense for the people who do care a lot and who have, some minimum amount of skin in the game and have shown over the past 2 years that, they really care about this community, that they govern those assets and are able to move fast with them when there are opportunities, and not be beholden by our standard governance practice of like discussing something in the governance forums for a while and then putting it to a vote and then finally acting on it. And in addition to that, it was always the vision that Flare DAO become independent to a certain degree. Um, in our original article, we mentioned that Flare DAO governs the bought back flares, and that it would take a while until we could move to a governance structure where flare holders themselves can actually custody things. And I think this is a really great time to actually begin to make that move, because uh, one, I think part of the main reason is because it's starting to be a bull market, and that means that there's a lot more things that you can do on chain. There's many more opportunities to generate revenue. And generally speaking, you have to move quicker in a bull market than in a bear market to take advantage of these opportunities. And so, yeah, so that's like the big picture of what's being discussed with regards to um, Flare DAO taking custody of a small portion of its assets. Um, so some of the details, some of the details that have been discussed are like, what exactly do they custody? I think we've all settled on that they would custody those things that are in the Flare DAO wallet, but not the bought back flares or um the it's the larger stack of VE Lifinity, which is like 20% of the VE Lifinity supply that Flare DAO owns. For the time being, the team will still custody those. Uh, Another thing that was discussed was whether we should put a cap on the amount that this council, as we're calling it, uh, whether there would be a cap on the amount of total assets that they custody. Let me take a drink real quick. So if we so the rationale for why it's being considered is people were expressing concern about what if the uh, the amount of assets like went into the millions or whatever, then there would be a strong incentive for the council members to like basically run off with the funds. I think that's the thinking. So yeah, so the idea would be if there is a cap, anything that goes beyond the cap would be converted to Sol and sent to the buyback wallet that's controlled by the team and is used for buybacks. Um, and I think that's a fine way to start. So I think White Turtle Bill did some napkin math and came up with 200K as a cap. We also did a vote, and 200 is like below the average. So, there's like a margin of safety below the average vote, essentially. So I think that's a very reasonable number, and it should be used for the proposal. um, let's see. There were probably some other things discussed here. Oh yeah, we were discussing the structure of the multisig that would be used, and who would have veto power, if anyone. So like one question was like, of course, like who is on this council? Who gets to be part of the multisig? And I basically just asked who would want to be a part, and I think it's fairly obvious from the people who voted, um, who has been with us a long time and has been active, versus people who have joined much more recently. So I think anyone who has at least one flare and has been with us decently long enough and has been a value add member of the community um, can be part of the council. I think it's best if I just make that decision to make it like um, the least controversial. Um, I don't know if people are going to be feel good about like being voted on as individuals. I mean, I guess if you like, if everyone really wants to do that, we can do that. And it's also more cumbersome, but like in my mind, it's quite clear from the people who expressed a desire to be a part of the council, like who is worthy. It's either like people who have been with us for really long, or people who have joined really recently. Uh, so that's my perspective, anyways. But we'll see. And then I'm not sure if there are other things. There may have been. Uh, People can always go check out the channel for that, called the Community Council for Flare DAO channel under Flare governance. But yeah, so yeah, that's my current understanding and the points of debate that I can recall right now. Um, yeah, let me know if you have any more questions with regards to that. All right, gonna take a drink before I start coughing. All right, Balder asks, any update that can be shared about testing that may be happening with Project S? How have yields looked compared to one, locking VE Lifinity, or two, just staking Sol? At this given point in time, Sol constant at $100, etc. All right, so I think these are two separate questions. So is there anything we can share about testing with Project S? Not really. I mean, especially because like we haven't even revealed what Project S is. It's really hard to give details without leaking those details. But I think the UI looks really sick. I'll just say that. Um, yeah, has some pretty cool features. Okay, so the second part of your question, how have yields looked comparing locked VE Lifinity versus staking Sol? Let's see. So the past month, the APR was 8%. Actually, the previous month, it was also 8%. Month before that, it was 9%. Month before that, it was 12%. Month before that, it was 5%. So, I mean, I would say it's fairly comparable to the staking rate, maybe slightly higher than staking yield, but basically the same. Um, I'm not sure why you would compare it to staking Sol, because like it like that the yield of course matters, but if you're like trying to decide between buying Sol and Lifinity, I think your choice, like you also have to consider the price movement, right? And because that's probably going to be more significant than the APR, just because prices are much more volatile than yields are. So yeah, uh, and with regards to price, I have like no clue what either of them are going to do. So I'm not really sure what else to say with regards to that. But all right, a dot dot dot. Actually, hold on a second. What are these dot 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 people? Is a thing? Earlier there's a d dot dot dot. The next question is w dot dot dot. Weird. Anyways, they ask, will Lifinity benefit from Fire Dancer, and how? Let's see. So, I'm not a dev, so I'm not like my understanding could be wrong. So my understanding of Fire Dancer, I think it could lower block times a bit. Solana certainly has the ambition to lower block times to, I think it was 200 milliseconds. And that would be good for us because that means prices are updated faster. Um, and that's always good for us. I talked about the latency problem earlier about the push-pull model with regards to Pyth. So this would go in the other direction where latency would improve. So that would be one way where we could benefit. Um, I mean, of course, there's like the generic ways that we benefit where, it's bullish Solana, and anything bullish Solana is generally bullish for us because it'll increase volume on Solana. Um, I can't really think of another way other than that generic way and the lowering latency that it would benefit us specifically. Yeah, that's all I can think of. But yeah, should be good. Excited for Fire Dancer, for sure. W dot 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 asks, what financial benefit is there to buying flares? or is there more upside to holding VE Lifinity? Well, I again I have no idea about the upside of either. Um, like most gains or losses are going to be due to price movements, and that's just incredibly hard to predict for anyone. But I can give you like some factors to think about for each, I guess. So the way flares work is they own about 1/5 of the VE Lifinity supply, or like 5.7 million VE Lifinity. So that means they receive about 1/5 of the revenue that we distribute each month. So, for example, this previous month revenue was like 500K ish. So they received, um, oh yeah, and half of that is distributed, so 250K, and they receive 1/5 of that, so that's like 50K. And that USDC yield is converted to SOL, and then the SOL is used to buy back flares. So the circulating supply of flares continues to decrease, and the price of the floor price of flares gradually increases over time. Of course, the floor price of flares is more influenced by people buying and selling than just the buybacks done by Flare DAO. So it's like not going to be a straight line up, of course. There's plenty of ups and downs, but if you look at it over a long-term long-term time horizon, then it should go up because we are buying them back, and supply is decreasing. And another interesting thing about the supply decreasing is that that also means each flare uh, gradually will own more of the underlying assets owned by Flare DAO. So most NFTs, I think, they're not really backed by anything. Um, it's just, you know, it's just a question of how much you can sell it for. But flares are actually backed by assets, so there is a book value to them. And so that book value also gradually increases over time because of the buybacks. Yeah, so that's flares. And then there's VE Lifinity, which is locked tokens, and that gives you the the same yield, same type of yield that flares get. But in this case, you receive it as USDC. So if you like receiving revenue, um, there are tokens. And yeah, I mean, I won't get into like all the intricacies of like the X Lifinity, the early unlocking mechanism, and the arbitrage trade and all that. But yeah, like there is no saying like which is better. Like some of the differences between them are subjective, I think, and depends on your personal preferences. And I like to say that like if there is an obvious difference in value between them, then people will always arbitrage that difference. And so the market should reflect those differences and preferences as a whole. So yeah, those are some things to consider. But what's best for you, only you can know. Time for a drink. All right. Prodramo says, I've got a question. I just saw that DFlow is collecting liquidity slash asking to deposit Lifinity. Any clue why they are doing this? No, I have no idea actually. Who are they asking to deposit? And what does that mean? Like, are they lending to market makers, or are they depositing in a pool like an AMM? Or I do know what DFlow is. They reached out to us once, and I think they were trying to partner. This is a pretty long time ago, actually. But then after talking for like half an hour, I think they finally realized that we don't really have flow, no pun intended, because our volume, a lot of it comes from Jupyter, and so yeah, I think then they lost interest. Prodrom says, I've got no clue. That's why I asked. But you should ask them. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer. And then you can report back to us in the Big Brain Alpha channel. When Project S asks, GMGM, has Meteor confirmed that the Lifinity slash X Lifinity pair will give points and therefore an airdrop? No more news from Bird Eye about the wick? Yeah, so the Meteor thing actually, was it you who told me to ask them earlier? Because I forgot about that. Um, Actually, yeah, I think you must have asked me in a AMA because I think I said I might forget, so you should remind me later. But yeah, I can I can ask again. But yeah, again like I highly doubt that they would nullify those points. They are aware that we've deposited that liquidity. I DM'd him about that once. Um, and yeah, I think they're only gonna remove um, what do you call it? Wash trading volume or any type of volume that's trying to game the system, which ours is clearly not that. So yeah, honestly, I'm like not worried at all. But yeah, if you can remind me, I can ask. And then Bird Eye, I've reminded them yet again. I was like, is this still on your to-do list, like you mentioned? And they said yeah, so I don't know. There's really not more I can do beyond reminding them. I don't know. I think it's probably a matter of priorities for them. From their perspective, we're probably just a rando project, and yeah, I don't know. They'll probably be focusing on other things, but yeah, I guess I'll remind them again some other time. All right. Opaque asks, is there a plan to automate the buyback of Lifinity as revenue is generated rather than in chunks? Yeah, so sorry about this misconception. Actually, we don't buy in chunks. You won't find us buying Lifinity in clips of 100K. So actually, we used to have a functional bot that did exactly this. It would buy Lifinity at semi-random times. I forgot the frequency, something like every hour or something. And it was in like very small sizes, right? Because it's like spread out over the course of a month. So let's see. Then we switched to increasing liquidity for a while rather than using revenue for buybacks. So buybacks stopped for a while, and then there's a vote to switch that to a combination of buybacks and increasing liquidity, 50% each. So that's where we're at right now, but the bot that does the buybacks needs to be updated. If I remember correctly, the reason is that in the meantime, Jupyter released a new version of their API, which we use for the buybacks, so that we're always buying at the best price. There may have been another reason. I'm not sure, but yeah. Bottom line is the bot needs to be reworked a bit so that um, it can work. But yeah, we've been focusing on Project S, and that's why we haven't gotten to that yet. But we certainly will. And to our great luck, um, well, some of you may not like me saying this, but to our great luck, the price has decreased in the meantime, which means when we do resume buybacks, we will be buying at a lower price. Assuming we don't like mega pump from here. So that'll be nice, at least. But yeah, sorry for the confusion caused because our buyback bot is not live right now. All right, well, those are all the questions in the Discord for now. If anyone wants to come on stage, I could bring you on stage, or if you just want to write in the Twitter replies, I think that also works. Or the comments of the spaces. I will also check those. We have a follow-up question from Opaque. He says, during the oligarch chat, you teased Project S end of February. Is that still the case? So I don't think we will be launching by the end of February. No. In the meantime, since the AMA with Oligarch, we came up with a new way to improve the protocol. And so we are reworking some things, which will result in a better mechanism, although it will delay us a bit. But yeah, that's why we will no longer be able to launch by the end of February. So I guess now we're aiming to launch in March, but we'll see. I'm not 100% sure about that. Prodromo says, can you clarify what is Oligarch? Yeah, so we did a AMA with the oligarchs. I think they are an NFT collection. Opaque, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, we did an AMA with them, and I actually posted the recording as a podcast on our Lifinity RSS feed. So if you're subscribed to the Lifinity podcast, then you will have seen that in your feed. It's a pretty good one. Good questions. We have some people typing, so I'll wait for their questions. Yeah, Pajama says, thanks, we'll check. I think if you just search for Oligarch in the announcements channel, you'll be able to find it. Bowware says, I might have missed it, but is Project S a Lifinity development, or is it in a partnership with Jupiter? It is a Lifinity thing. It's not a partnership with anyone. Although the protocol will have a lot of partnerships. Yeah, it's like a it's like a protocol built for partnerships, you might say. K57, did someone win the Guess What Project S is contest on Twitter? No, actually they haven't. They haven't. But even if they did, even then, maybe I would say they haven't. Because if I say they did, then you would be able to limit your options. But I can't let you do that now, can I? Scorch says, but it's in plain sight. Yes, it is in plain sight, like I said. I think it's hilarious. I think it'll be hilarious when everyone finds out what it actually is. You know, some people in the chat were like, "We would have preferred if you had just never mentioned Project S to begin with, like never teased us." And I mean, not everyone was of that opinion, but there were a surprising to me number of people that uh, said that. Actually, they just reacted with an emoji. So I don't know how strongly they felt that, but yeah, I it makes me wonder what you guys would be saying right now if we had never mentioned anything about this ever. And I don't know what what I would be saying to you guys. Like, what are we doing even? Is the team doing anything? Devs, do something. Oh, we have a ton of people typing suddenly. Prodroma says, "Can you promise no points or diamonds program on Project S?" The thing is, like, I've already shat on points publicly on Twitter. So, like, if we did points, I think my past tweets are gonna get shat on. So I've already backed myself into a corner. Uh, yeah, I would prefer not to do points. Yeah, I points are definitely good for projects, definitely bad for retail relative to just giving out tokens in a transparent manner. But yeah, I do have some creative ideas for how to do distribution that might come into play, but also I just want to say definitely no guarantees on anything. But I do have some ideas for like things that have never been done before. Um, but yeah, it's not even 100% clear that we will need a token per se. Like tokens are should be used for a purpose, right? It's like if you're a successful business on chain, like if you're a protocol slash business and you're successful without a token, then why launch a token? You know, it's like you have a service that people use and they pay you fees for it and they love it, and you're generating revenue. That's great. It's like why do you need a token? But it's not 100%. I mean, obviously, like I don't know what will happen until we actually launch, so we'll have to wait and see. But but yeah, if there is a new token, big if, I just want to emphasize this. Then yeah, I got some ideas that are not points or diamonds or whatever. All right, Opaque says, is Lifinity only Solana focused or ever thinking of going cross chain? Yeah, so this is a very common question. We might get it like every AMA. Well, that's probably like exaggerating a bit. But yeah, actually I've recently talked about in the chat or in the AMA about how we've been um looking at options. Actually, like teams reach out to us. They probably reach out to like all the major AMMs on Solana when they're looking to have Solana projects launch on them. So yeah, it's definitely a possibility. We've been like working on some like the requisite paperwork with one project in particular. So that's the one with like the most potential for something to actually happen. Like it's not going to happen until it's actually happened, but like the preliminary discussions have gone the furthest with this one project. So yeah, it is definitely uh, in the realm of possibility. All right, Scorched says, where do you see Lifinity 3 years from now? Um, Honestly, I don't think that far ahead. I think it's not really useful, especially in crypto. Um, like my answer for that right now, I think is inevitably going to be wrong because I won't be taking into account the information that I will have 1 year later or 2 years later. The landscape is going to be very different, I think, in ways that no one can predict. I mean, like some things I think you can predict in a big picture sense. Um, but yeah, that's really difficult to answer. Um, I'm not even sure as like I can answer that in like a general way. I think the biggest thing for Lifinity is it relies on the balance of centralized exchange volume versus decentralized exchange volume. And right now, the place of price discovery is on centralized exchanges. I think that probably won't change for a while, especially since most of the world isn't on chain yet. And centralized exchanges are the most convenient and user friendly way to get people onboarded. But, I can certainly see further into the future where like most people are on chain. And once you are on chain, uh, you there's a good chance you don't use centralized exchanges. Or if you do, you don't use it that much. Or you just like use it for off ramping, which is different than like using it as your place of custody. And so in that world, centralized exchange volume could decrease, and at some point, decentralized exchange volume could go beyond that of centralized exchange volume. It's not a guaranteed outcome, but I think it's certainly possible. So yeah, when I think about Lifinity, that's like the biggest thing I think about in terms of like the future and how things will change for Lifinity. Other than that, like we'll have more pools. Maybe we'll be on more chains. Maybe we'll have more products, more partnerships. Uh, but yeah, I've only listed bullish things. So moving on to the second part of your question, do you have any future concerns of losing market share to competitors? So of course that's always a possibility as well. Can't ignore it. So I think our main competitors are market makers on order books. This is because they are the um, only ones that are able to essentially reflect Oracle prices. It's kind of weird to say it like that because it's not exactly what they're doing, but it's probably like pretty close to what they are doing. um, so yeah, market makers, they do something similar to what Lifinity does, except they're not automated market makers. They have their own proprietary algorithms for market making, and the logic for those can be very complex because the logic part they can run off chain. The only on chain part is where they place the bids and asks. But the logic for determining at what price to place their bids and asks, they can keep that off chain. And so it can be very sophisticated. And it can definitely be more sophisticated than Lifinity because Lifinity, as an AMM, all its logic, including determining the price at which to buy and sell, is on chain. So, we're essentially like one automated market maker competing against the collective intelligence of I don't know how many, like hundreds maybe, of market makers. So like there is that like structural disadvantage that Lifinity has. So far we've done like really good, I think. Like it depends on the day. Sometimes Lifinity has more, and I think the best pool to benchmark this is Sol USDC, because it's the main pool with the most volume and fees. So yeah, some days we have more volume in our collective Sol USDC pools than Phoenix or OpenBook, and some days we have less. I think it's more or less like 50-50, the volume that we capture. And yeah, when you think about it that way, where like we're just one market maker with relatively simple logic, and then there's like hundreds of other guys with probably more sophisticated logic, but we're still capturing 50%. Like that's pretty fucking good. um, but yeah, that can change. Um, I haven't really seen signs of it changing, but it's a possibility for sure. Um, yeah, I guess that's about it. And my throat is going to be wrecked after this. I can feel it. All right. Well, anyone got any more questions? I can wait for another minute or two. See if any stranglers. Uh, Balware typing something or not? I said, thank you for your time and get well soon. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for showing up. All right. Well, it looks like everyone's satisfied. Yeah. Sorry for the coughing, but it couldn't be helped. Always appreciate you guys showing up and asking great questions. Um, yeah. I wish you guys a great day. Uh, a GM or a GN, depending on your time zone. And I'll see you around in the chats. Peace out.